So it looks like at the South Carolina debate, Elizabeth Warren was also again throwing shade at Bernie Sanders, attacking him for his Medicare for All proposal, saying that he hasn't shown how he's going to pay for it and how he's going to, develop allies, coalitions, people in, Congress or the Senate in order to get it passed. So I just wanted to make a couple of comments on that. So first of all, should also be, noted first and foremost that when it comes to the issue of healthcare, Bernie Sanders by far and away has the highest support for that single issue of any other candidate. I just went on Twitter, looked at the political polling Twitter feed. They have a breakdown on the healthcare issue. Bernie Sanders at number 1, 33%. I believe it was Biden and maybe Bloomberg or Buttigieg in second with like 14. Elizabeth Warren was at 11 or 12. So Bernie Sanders by far and away is the favored candidate when it comes to the issue of healthcare, and it makes sense. He's been clear and unequivocal in his support for adopting a single-payer Medicare for All type system since the 80s. For multiple decades, Elizabeth Warren has flip-flopped on it, and just the last several months, and guess what? What do you know? Once she did that, her polling numbers tanked because people saw that she wasn't really in the fight for Medicare for All. She wasn't really a huge proponent of it. She came out with this really convoluted and stupid way of, first we'll do the public option, and then 3 years later, when I've used up all of my political capital, I'm going to try to get Medicare for All passed then. So people just see that her support of Medicare for All is very disingenuous, as opposed to Bernie Sanders, again, supporting it for many, many decades, never waffling, never backtracking. He makes it, a pretty much key component of all of his campaign speeches, as well as, the debates. He always brings it up, how it's going to save money, $450 billion a year, according to the recent study in The Lancet. Close to 70,000 people lives would be saved each year, and it's just the right thing to do from an ethical and moral perspective. We're the only country in the industrialized world who doesn't guarantee healthcare as a human right to its citizens. That's just sick and disgusting and immoral, and Bernie Sanders is the only one who's going to fight to make sure that everybody has healthcare, so people aren't dying. Up to 70,000 people each year, if not more, because they don't have health insurance or they're underinsured. 500 plus thousand each year go bankrupt, and just the right thing to do. And Bernie's been clear and consistent, and what do you know? He has the highest favorability on the issue of healthcare. And so Elizabeth Warren is trying to say, well, I'm actually, the strongest on this issue because I have a plan. I show how I'm going to pay for it. Well, Elizabeth Warren, if you actually did a little bit of research and not just this straw man attack against Bernie, which isn't going to stick and was just going to alienate more people against you, you should have been using that time to, go after maybe Bloomberg or Biden or Buttigieg or Klobuchar or Stay or Steyer, people that you supposedly have, more differences with regards to policy or ideology. Instead, you were attacking Bernie Sanders, the closest to you, in in an ideological and a policy sense. But it's clear she's just keeps going further and further to the center or to the right in order to, maybe she thinks if Bernie doesn't get a majority of the delegates, then the super delegates would maybe come in the second round and try to prop her up somehow. But she's delusional at this point if she thinks that there's any chance that she wins the nomination. It's 538 earlier this week had her at less than 1% of winning the nomination. Bernie is by far and away the front runner, and again, if Elizabeth Warren was truly concerned about getting a progressive elected to the White House, she would have dropped out by this point and endorsed Bernie Sanders and encouraged her supporters to do everything that they can to make sure Bernie Sanders is the nominee. And also, she's saying that Bernie Sanders doesn't have a plan to fund Medicare For All. If actually, again, if she had done a little bit of research instead of just this, shady, unsubstantiated attack at Bernie Sanders, he actually released some plans yesterday of how he's going to fund Medicare For All, expanding Social Security, canceling student loan debt, making college free, universal pre-K and childcare. He released all of those plans yesterday. Elizabeth Warren and her team could have obviously went through that, but instead of doing that, Warren came out and threw a lot more shade at Bernie Sanders, and it's going to be awesome to see Bernie Sanders win the Massachusetts primary in Elizabeth Warren's home state, and I hope she'll at least have the sense after that point to drop out. So again, if we want a progressive in the White House who's going to fight for working people to make sure things like Medicare for All, a Green New Deal, canceling student loan debt, ending the wars, legalizing marijuana, all of these things become a reality, Bernie Sanders is our only shot of making that happen. And again, she was trying to say that Bernie Sanders, doesn't have any allies or friends in Congress or the Senate to get this passed, but that's definitely not true. Just look at some of his surrogates like AOC, like Ilhan Omar, like Rashida Tlaib, like Pramila Jayapal, like Mark Pocan, like Ro Khanna. All these, very progressive members of Congress are on Bernie's side, and you know what Bernie has said? He will use the bully pulpit. He will go out and campaign against corporate centrist blue dog Democrats, whoever they might be, whatever state they might be in, if they're not willing to toe the line and support things like Medicare for All and a Green New Deal. Bernie Sanders will actively go out and campaign to support, their progressive challengers in those races if those candidates, like, a Joe Manchin type, aren't willing to support those things. So Bernie Sanders has a plan, he has the support, he has the movement, he is our only choice. Bernie 2020, not me, us. Peace.